joining us right now. We love having him on because he has such a great perspective on this. Our very good friend Gordon Chang, who is a foreign policy expert, and of course, having lived in Hong Kong and knowing in and out everything that's related to China, and of course this part of our foreign policy and geopolitical arena. He's been in demand lately because of everything that's been happening. Of course, best-selling author as well. Gordon Chang, always such a pleasure to have you. So good to see you again. And I wanted to ask your thought. I thought it was very interesting that Joseph Wu and Taiwan are making overtures to Australia to get some of Australia's help. And I'm wondering if this is partly because maybe they were a little bit disappointed in the kind of the toothless sort of response that the administration kind of sent out, like, oh, well, China, if you don't stop these repeated military incursions in Taiwanese airspace, we're not going to like it. I mean, how many missives have they sent like that before? So now you have the foreign minister of Taiwan, Joseph Wu, appealing to Australia. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, these comments from Joseph Wu really took me by surprise because normally Taiwan is just sort of sloughs off Chinese provocations. This time, however, we've seen two statements. There's the one from Joseph Wu to ABC News in Australia. The other was Tsai Ing-wen, the president in foreign affairs. She talks about the catastrophic consequences that could occur or will occur if China takes over Taiwan. And it's important that she said that in the United States because there are a number of people in our country who don't understand the significance of Taiwan. And clearly the statement from our State Department on Sunday and the comments from Jen Psaki yesterday were a little milquetoast.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. You're very generous in your description of that. I noticed, and I think that there were some members of the press that were a little bit taken aback by that as well, because this is, very much so increased aggression from China. What was it on Monday? 56 of their jets alone into Taiwanese airspace. And they started doing this on Friday, so it's a huge increase in normally what they do.
Yeah. Friday was actually a record. Friday was China's National Day, 72nd anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic. And that set a record of 38. Then you have Saturday, 39. These guys took a breather on Sunday. It was only 16, but it was 56 on Monday. And it is not just the number of planes. It's also that they've been continuing to send their nuclear-capable H-6K bombers. They're sort of like our B-52s. So that is a message. And the United States needs to not only have words, words are fine, but the point is we need to be sending our B-52s close to Taiwan as a warning to Beijing because they need to see some resolve. They have seen the Biden administration basically soften its China policies after the fall of Kabul. And Beijing, I'm sure, is sort of chortling about what's going on.
They seem to be it seems like they're emboldening, and we're speaking with Gordon Chang, it seems as though the emboldening of China was fast-tracked after the fall of Kabul because they noticed this and they realized this is our golden opportunity because it just seemed to me, from my perspective, and I could be incorrect on this, it just seemed to change dramatically.
Yeah, after the fall of Kabul, there was one good thing, and that was the announcement of AUKUS, the Australia, UK, US Security Pact. But there was one really bad thing, and that was our friend John Kerry giving his interview to David Weston of Bloomberg News saying, United States, we don't care about human rights. We need to get a climate deal. The thing that Beijing, one could say whatever one wants to about the Uyghurs. Personally, I'm not in favor of mass rape, slavery, organ harvesting, and mass killing. But even if John Kerry doesn't care about those things, and apparently he doesn't, the question that the American people need to ask Kerry is, what else are you willing to give up to get a climate deal? Are you willing to jeopardize the security of the United States because you want to have an enhanced arrangement with Beijing?
And that's ultimately what this is. Talking with foreign policy expert Gordon Chang, you've seen him on Fox, and he's a New York Times bestselling author as well. Gordon, with this too, the climate deal and it's so weird that I'm right with you. I thought John Kerry's statement was so odd, especially given what China controls in that particular, the green energy market. We would be paying more to fund aggression and hostilities, not just against us, but also Taiwan. I am mystified by this. Why Washington, D.C. still pursues this?
Yeah. I don't know. I hope, and I I don't know the Biden team, but I do hope there are people there who understand that John Kerry is out by himself. But I'm not exactly sure about that because, we have seen since Kerry made those comments, we have seen basically the Biden administration go even softer. So, for instance, Catherine Tsai, who is generally got the right ideas, she talked about the phase one trade deal yesterday. And basically, she just sort of flopped. This really was something that Beijing wanted to hear. I mean, it gets into the weeds on trade stuff, but the point is Beijing was probably pretty happy after she stopped speaking.
Oh yeah, I would imagine. But I was reading about that. I would imagine that as well. Incredibly soft on this, and that to me, I think that encourages them further. Gordon, let me ask you this: what? I think now, obviously, AUKUS, I think that was a step in the right direction. Although I like peace through strength. I like avoiding conflict by knowing that if conflict was engaged, any opposition would be turned to glass, essentially. The problem in the Pacific, and of course the United States focused for so long in the Middle East, I feel like we're playing catch up in the Pacific now as a result of this. But what can be done to avert like basically a hot conflict? What can be done at this point to avert this from escalating further?
Well, the thing that I would do is, first of all, I would put an Arleigh Burke destroyer or two, and I would have it make port calls in Taiwan. I would send a couple C-17s with the Marines or Army just as a tripwire. But most important, Dana, I would have the President of the United States do two things. First of all, from the Oval Office, publicly warn the Chinese. Second of all, I would extend an invitation to Taipei that if they wanted a mutual defense treaty, that we would be willing to do that. And the reason is, China, people will say this is provocative. And in a sense, I can understand the argument. But the point is, we have had atrocious Taiwan policies now for about 3 decades. And every avenue that leads out of today is exceedingly dangerous. So we might as well be strong, because if we're strong, we have a chance of getting out of this without conflict. But what we have seen with Biden, this is really getting dangerous because the Chinese are starting to think that they can do something.
And the Taiwanese have expressed a willingness to fight. They will fight for their freedom. I mean, their leaders have been very aggressive, especially as of late. We were just talking about Joseph Wu in pushing back and calling out China for what they were doing. And that was always a criticism that this administration had with Afghanistan. But yet everything that they poured into Afghanistan to nation build there. But yet here's a nation that this isn't a nation building issue. This is a people that will fight for themselves and 26 million some odd strong. And it's amazing that consistency disappears whenever the administration. What do they have against Taiwan? I mean, that's ultimately the question I come to.
Well, this is, I think, a product. It's not just Biden. It's a product of a series of American administrations that have misperceived what's going on. People in Taiwan, they don't think of themselves as Chinese. When you start to look at the self-identification surveys, you see anywhere between 67 to 83% of the people believe that they're Taiwanese only. And consistently, we see that the number of people who think of themselves as Chinese only is below 5%, consistently below 5%. And we have seen surveys recently that have said that the people in Taiwan, they want to fight to protect themselves because, culture trumps almost everything else. And people there don't see themselves as Chinese. So what we need to do is recognize that Taiwan is integral to our security. And there's a lot of conversation about that. Also, that we cannot allow to lose any country in the free world, especially after the fall of Kabul, because our allies are already disheartened.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Last quick question, talking with Gordon Chang. So now that Taiwan has responded to the incursions into their airspace by China, what do you anticipate? What's the response from China going to be?
We're going to find out on October 10th, which is Taiwan's National Day. And I expect, and I'm always wrong about these things, Dana, but I expect to see Chinese flights not just slicing through Taiwan's air defense identification zone, which is what they've done, but to actually circle around the island. And probably they'll do that with their Navy as well as with their Air Force. So this would be a big show of force. Now, as I said, I'm not really good at predicting what Beijing will do, but that would be the next logical step, given the progression that has occurred over the weekend.
Exactly. And knowing that they really wouldn't get any pushback from D.C. at this point. Gordon Chang, always appreciate it, my friend Gordon. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you, Dana.
Of course.